Okay, so I've taken a little longer. I've done PvP, leveling, I've done dungeons, regular, and time walking, and now I'm doing the Forbidden Reach. So, I've had a chance to play around with the talents and abilities. Um, so, I want to go over my opening rotations and just kind of how I spend my combo points and the few changes I've made to the talents. Um, as I've been doing, if you are curious how I came to um, choose the talents I'm using, that will be the second part, me doing the initial reset of the talents. So I want to go over my rotation first because rogues have an opening rotation and a out of stealth rotation, um, essentially. So um, basically, for PvP, Shadow Step to get behind the target, Cheap Shot to stun and generate a combo point, Grout to stun, generate a combo point, and add a bleed, and then I will use Grout again to reapply the stun and generate another combo point. Then I will Kidney Shot. By that point, Stealth has broken, so I have enough energy to use one Mutilate. If I have enough combo points, I'll use Rupture. Um, I'll use Grout to reapply the Bleed, and then I will use Thistletea to increase my mastery and use Deathmark. And then in PvE, so a lot of the rares around the Forbidden Reach, since that's what I've been doing a lot of, are immune to stun. So Cheap Shot, Kidney Shot, Blind have no effect. So I've been getting better with using my stealth ability. So I'll actually use Grout and then an Ambush. So if I do more PvP, I could see doing Grout and then an Ambush rather than using two Grouts back to back. So, um, or maybe Ambush and then Grout, something like that. So the um, stun durations make more sense. So I'll use Grout, Ambush, and then I'll wait for Subterfuge to run out, and then apply Rupture. Um, Grout to keep my bleed up. And then that's basically it. So then the out of stealth rotation is just spamming Mutilate, making sure Rupture stays up, making sure Grout stays up, um, and then just spamming Envenom to apply whatever poisons haven't already been applied, um, and just do direct damage. So, um, occasionally I will use Slice and Dice, um, and then depending on the fight, depending on the rare and how many of us are there, um, I will try to make sure my energy is as low as possible. So usually two Mutilate and an Envenom, I'm out of energy. So I will use a Thistletea, again, to generate energy and increase my mastery, and then apply Deathmark, since Deathmark is a bleed, and Assassination's mastery interacts with bleeds. Um, so that is pretty much it. Um, I'll use Fint quite a bit. I try to keep evasion for more kind of emergency situations. Um, Fint has a pretty short duration, pretty short cooldown, so you can kind of spam it. Crimson Vial, I pretty much keep on cooldown. I don't really ever use Shiv. There's one rare that I know of that has a um, enrage, something that can be dispelled. Most everything else just needs to be interrupted, so I'll use kick. So it's pretty much, as I said, just spamming mutilate, keeping rupture up, keeping grout up, and then just spamming envenom. And I think that's pretty much the same for stealth abilities. So grout has different effects whether you're in stealth or whether you're out of stealth. Um, so that is why I have it on two different places. Um, there are talents you can take that will, if you've played Rogue before, you might just want to kind of set some things up how you um, remembered them before or how you preferred them before. So internal bleeding adds the bleed to kidney shot, so it's stunning and adding a bleed. Um, Iron Wire adds the stun to grout, so again you're adding a bleed and a stun. And I think that's it. Cheap shot. I want to say you should generate 2 combo points as opposed to just the one that it does now. Um, I also feel like Grout had a stun built in. I could be wrong. I do remember having to take a talent for the bleed effect for kidney shot and maybe the stun effect for Grout, but it really seems like it all used to be kind of built in because Assassination had it and was it Outlaw did not? Like there were 2 specs that had Grout, one stunned and one did not. That's I do remember that. Um, so other than that, everything pretty much works as I remember. Um, I don't normally play Assassination. Um, I think that was why it took a little longer because it's been there's been a little bit of time between when I reset the talents and then um, doing like an overview of everything. Normally I would switch over and there were just a few differences between Assassination and Subtlety, and I always switched back over to Subtlety, or I played Outlaw. Um, Once they made the changes from combat to Outlaw. Um, so this is um, this has been I've been excited to play this. I started doing PvP first, and once I kind of got a handle on the opener, um, which you could argue is the one of the harder parts to playing Rogue. Once I kind of figured out the opener, I was actually able to solo some players depending on their class and things like that, how well they were geared. Um, so I did make a few changes from when I reset the talents. Um, Speaking of PvP, I got rid of blindsides immediately. Like as soon as I reset them, I went and found a target dummy, and just to kind of get uh, somewhat of a reference of how everything works. And my hope was that, much like Sepsis, that blindsides, when it triggered, would just swap over to your stealth command bar so you could use ambush. It does not. You actually have to move it to the command bar. So for that reason, it's only a 20% chance. There's other abilities that I've used on other classes that have like a 25% chance. So you think like 1 out of every 4 times it'll proc. They didn't, and yet there's other abilities still that have like an 8% chance and they proc all the time. So 20% sounds good, but in practice, from playing around with other abilities on other classes, which I realize trying to, um, I guess you'd say it's kind of theory crafting. Ambush does do more damage than Mutilate. It also has the same energy cost, so I would almost rather just use Mutilate. Um, for about as much sense as it makes. In PvP, you can get more use out of ambush um, more consistently. I probably could be running around doing PvE stuff, going around killing rares around the Forbidden Reach. I just haven't been stealthing. There hasn't been a reason to. We've just been grouping up, either just on our own or actually making groups and just going around and killing rares. So there really hasn't been a reason to. So kind of the rinse and repeat has been working fine. And with subtlety, I had went for more of a simplified setup, and that worked well, and that's what I was trying to do for assassination. I don't really feel like I need it. I'm not missing anything. I did also, so I took Dragon Tempered Blades, which allows you to use 1 additional lethal poison and non-lethal poison. So if you see, I have 4. Um, so I had taken Amplifying Poison, and I had swapped it out for Twist of the Knife. Um, because I kind of misunderstood how this worked. Um, it said 1 lethal and non-lethal poison. I didn't realize how many poisons were considered lethal poisons. I thought Rogue had more non-lethal than lethal, because lethal poisons are usually do damage, are usually more powerful than non-lethal. Non-lethal usually have some sort of like passive effect. Um, so at first I thought you could only have 3 poisons up. And then when I kind of realized that, um, I was running around killing rares and thinking, well, I don't really know how effective these are being. Um, so now I have enough poisons where I use 3 regardless of what I'm doing, whether I'm doing PvP or PvE, and then I just need to swap 1 back or forth depending. So I have Wound Poison, which reduces healing. Deadly Poison, which does damage. Amplifying Poison, which does damage. Crippling Poison, which slows. And Numbing Poison, which slows attack and casting speed. So just take instant poison out of it completely. And that seems to work well. I really wasn't sure how much wound poison was actually doing. And for some reason, I was thinking it was a non-lethal poison. I didn't realize it actually did damage, so I went back and reread it. Because the poisons for Rogue really haven't changed much over the years. Deadly Poison is specific to Assassination and does a ton of damage. Amplifying Poison does a small amount of damage and then enhances the damage that Envenom does. So I wasn't sure how that was going to work. Some abilities like this that kind of enhance in another ability that's not a passive where you have to trigger something to happen um, can go either way. They can be good or bad. So this seems to work well from what I've seen so far. It hasn't been too long since I switched back to it. However, I've joined a couple groups, been in a couple groups, ran around, killed a bunch of rares, seems to work fine. I can tell when I use Envenom like it's doing something. Um, So, crippling poison I think is fine. There's some non-elites that stuns and poisons will affect more than others. So, um, and there's plenty of mobs that are just kind of scattered out here and there. So, crippling poison and numbing poison are fine. I want to see numbing poison um, in PvP, see how it works, play around with it. Um, so those are pretty much the 5 that I have. Um, and I had sepsis. Basically, it just kind of was one ability too many. It worked exactly as it did for subtlety. It was fine. It was just kind of one ability too many. I might go back and look at the talents again. That's kind of what I've been doing after I've been playing a spec or a class for so long. I'll go back and kind of just review the talents because maybe I missed something, or maybe there were interactions that I didn't realize at the time. So that was the main thing. Subtlety doesn't have Death Mark, so I was kind of using Sepsis where I would use Death Mark for Assassination. So that's all it was. I kept forgetting it was there because I was using something else, and it just kind of sat there, and I wanted to use the talent point for something else. So I put that talent point and I think some one or two from leveling because I can't. I don't think I took a talent point away from anything else. Into your poisons and bleeds deal 45% increased damage to targets below 35% health. So what I was finding in PvP was I was running through my rotation. Um, so Shadow Step, Cheap Shot, Grout, Kidney Shot, Mutilate, Rupture, Grout, all that, Thistle Tea, Death Mark, and then I would Vanish and rinse and repeat. And best case scenario, the target was down to about half their health. And then when I would repeat everything again, they would get right to the last bit of their health. Um, so I took this to help just kind of finish targets off, and I've actually been able to solo some players. Again, depending on the class and their gear. And then I think that was pretty much everything for Assassination. I made one change to the Rogue talents, a more recent change, where I took one talent from Night Stalker to get Numbing Poison. Um, because I didn't have another non-lethal poison. So, for a while, I was using Wound Poison, Deadly Poison, Crippling Poison, and that was it. Just the 3. So I wanted an actual another non-lethal poison to see if Dragon Tempered Blades was just oddly worded, or if it did actually let you apply one additional lethal and non-lethal. So, um, yeah, and then as with subtlety, the left side of the rogue talents here seem to work well. So, um, increasing um, your damage, your critical strike, your energy regeneration, vigor. I would say is almost a must take. Leeching poison is almost a must take. I do have some issues. So energy regeneration, and then next to that, I would say self healing are probably the 2 biggest things I struggle with. Um, for some reason, I thought Slice and Dice increased haste. It may have always just increased attack speed. It may just be something that I don't remember from the sporadic times I played Rogue. Um, and my haste has been up to 20%, and I still seem to struggle. Um, Mostly because of Mutilate. It takes 50 energy, which is pretty expensive for an ability. Um, However, with Thistle Tea, um, as I said, I typically use it in combination with Deathmark. On longer fights, if it's just like me and somebody else on a rare, or maybe just like three of us, I'll use Thistle Tea just by itself, just to fill up my energy bar. Um, since I don't have anything like Adrenaline Rush or anything like that for Assassination. Um, and that seems to work fine. I don't really ever use all three charges. I try to keep one charge. When it gets down to one, I try to keep it for Deathmark because Deathmark does a lot of damage. Um, so as long as you can just kind of rinse and repeat, you don't have to take the rares down fast as long as you are eventually able to continuously do damage. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much all the changes. I did make some healing potions. I had made some a while back, said I'll use them for something. So, um, usually I'll keep Crimson Vial on cooldown, as I said. And then, depending on kind of how long of a fight it is, I'll use maybe one healing potion per rare. It has a 5-minute cooldown. The cooldown doesn't trigger out of combat anyway, so I really can't use much more than that. I'm not stealthing out of combat usually. I just kind of, as I said, rinse and repeat, mutilate, keep rupture up, keep grout up, occasionally use slice and dice, and then just pretty much spam and venom. So, as far as my PvP talents, I was using System Shock, Crippling Venom, and Smoke Bomb. Not too bad, actually. Again, I kind of mostly took what I had before. So it's maybe 50% of taking things that I wanted because I had them before, and then just kind of playing around with other things, and it all kind of seems to work together. So Rogue's a pretty fleshed out class all in all. So yeah, mostly, as I said, I just don't play Assassination very often. So it's been fun and kind of exciting to. Some things are familiar. Some things have moved around from one spec to the other. I know over the various expansions and patches, things like that. Um, so getting to being kind of familiar with a class, but not necessarily familiar with all the abilities of a specific spec has been kind of fun to run around and play around with. Yeah, so there you go. If you, again, were curious how I came to pick the talents I have, that will be the second part. Okay, so I've been playing as Subtlety, and I wanted to look at Assassination. So this is what the default talents look like. So reset. So I'm going to start with the Assassination talents. I think that works better to start with the actual spec talents and then get into like the general class talents. So, deadly poison. I don't typically. Shift now also increases your nature damage done. I don't typically play. Assassination because it doesn't usually have quite as much um, crowd control abilities as subtlety does. Okay. Increases the application chance of your poisons by 5%. Are they not? %40 chance. So that would be a 50% chance. So I'm good with that. Damage increase. Good with that. Kidney shot also deals bleed damage per se. Yep, that's fine. Let's see. Ship has one additional charge. I don't think so. It hasn't been coming in all that handy so far. So has a rather short range. So increases the duration of your weapon poisons by increases the damage of your weapon poison by 10%. So okay, yeah, that's fine. Groat deals 50% increased damage and has no cooldown when used from stealth and for 3 seconds after breaking stealth. We'll take that. Shadow Step cooldown is reduced by 33 when used on a target affected by your... do I have Subterfuge? Or is that a... Oh, okay, so that is a rogue talent. Okay. So while stealth is active and for 3 seconds after breaking stealth, your critical strike chance is increased. Yes. Your weapon poisons nature damage over time and bleed abilities deal 1% increased damage to targets for each weapon poison, nature damage over time and bleed effects on them. Groat silences the target for 6 seconds when used from stealth. Yes. Enemy silenced by Groat deal. Yes, it has to be used from stealth, doesn't it? No. Ambush has to be used from stealth. Okay. Good to know. Let's me... These right. There we go. Mutilate deals an additional 20% bleed damage over 8 seconds. I'm assuming that's if it has deadly poison, because deadly poison is a assassination poison. They don't have it for subtlety. I want to say yes. So I'm assuming it just increases the damage. Deals additional 20% bleed. So I'm assuming it just increases the damage over the duration, or does it extend the duration? It's weirdly worded. Okay. Will. Uh, yeah, Death Mark isn't terrible, I suppose. Ambush and mutilate, deal an additional 10% damage as nature. Coat your weapons with a lethal poison that lasts for 1 hour. Each strike has a 40% chance to poison the target, dealing nature damage and applying amplifying poison for 12 seconds. Venom can consume 10 stacks. Deal 35% increased damage. Okay. Venom duration is increased by 2 seconds, so it lasts for 12 seconds. That's about 15 seconds. There's not really much of a benefit to increasing a bleed if you're going to do PvP, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards. If you were going to be doing raiding or like Mythic Plus, absolutely. Because you're probably going to be on the same target for probably the length of that duration, if not longer. PvP, not so much. And then you kind of end up wasting damage because the dot is not falling off as quickly as it should, so you're reapplying it just through your rotation. And unless it stacks, which there's not many dots that do stack. I guess that's fine. Growth increases the damage of ambush and mutilate on the target by 20%. Yeah, that's fine. I still need 3. Jib now also increases your nature damage done against the target by 20%. So what exactly does it consider nature damage? Or are we just taking a bit of regular damage? Because everything does like physical damage. And physical damage is pretty good. Physical damage and nature damage. Well, deadly poison does. Obviously, numbing poison doesn't. So that's actually probably fine. Envenom extends the duration of slice and dice up to 3 seconds per combo point. Yes, that would be just lovely. Your finishing moves grant 4% increased damage per 4 seconds. 8. No. I don't need an additional charge. That I'm sure of. Fan of Knives. Damage is increased by 50%, and it has a 5% increased critical strike chance. I'm gonna take this so it actually applies whatever my non-lethal poison is, because this can be really good for crowd control. So, do I want Crimson Tempest? I don't know. That's a... That's a interesting question. This was the... Pretty sure this was the level 85 talent. Like, back in Cataclysm. It's a dot, though. That's the only thing I don't like. Like, Black Powder just does direct damage, and then it's over. If I was to spam this, I would be... just reapplying the same thing, right? Yeah, it doesn't say it reapplies, so... ambush and mutilate have a 20% chance to make your next ambush free and usable without stealth. Chance increased by percent if the target is under 35%. Shiv deals 500% increased damage and no longer costs energy. How much energy does it cost? 20. I so rarely get to use it though. The range is so short. Increases growth damage by 20%. Growth generates 2 additional combo points when cast from stealth. Yes. Okay, now Stepsis I've used for subtlety, and it works perfectly fine. Embed a bone spike in the target, dealing physical damage and bleed damage until they die or leave combat. Refunds a charge when target dies. How many? Max 3 charges. You also have King's Blade, which was the artifact ability. So I'm very tempted just to take Sepsis. Because a lot revolves around using growth from stealth, so I think that's probably perfectly fine. It works into the rotation fairly well if used at the right time, so. Each enemy affected by your rapture increases your agility by 1% up to maximum of 24%. So agility also increases dodge, so it's attack power and dodge, so that's worth bearing in mind. 1% is fairly low though. I'm never really gonna have rapture on more than one target at a time though. Ambush and mutilate have a 20% chance to make your next ambush free and usable without stealth. Chance increased by 40%. The target is under don't know that this is worth taking a combo point for. However, it also moves me down the tree, so shift strikes 4 additional nearby enemies and increases your bleed damage done to affected targets by 20% per seconds. Your poison and bleeds deal 15% increased damage to targets below. Well, hold on. Maybe getting ahead of myself here. So, you may apply 1 additional lethal and non-lethal poison to your weapons. That seems overpowered. Release a lethal weapon from your weapons. Inject it into your target, dealing nature damage instantly and an additional nature damage over 14 seconds. Each time you apply a lethal poison to a target affected by King's Blade damage increases by 20%. Your next Groat and your next Rapture apply up to 8 enemies within 10 yards. Okay, so the middle's what I'm gonna want to come down, it looks like. So Envenom duration increased by 2 seconds. I don't care for abilities that you have to stack something else first. It's one thing if you need a proc. It's another thing if you just have to stack something up. So it doesn't say if these stacks expire, if they just stay there. The other thing is getting it when you have the maximum stacks, using the ability when you need it. Which again in PvP may not always be the case. So 2 seconds. 2 seconds more duration to Envenom. Or Amplifying Poison. Well, Amplifying Poison does do more. So I might try that. Play around with it and see. Envenom has a 4% chance per combo point spent to smash a vial of poison at the target's location, creating a pool of acid to all within. Yeah, that's fine. Envenom also increases your critical strike chance of your poisons by 5%. Their critical strikes generate 1 energy. Not really bumping our head on that ceiling there, are we? And yeah, I know what King's Blade does. I've played with that before. I'm curious about being able to add additional poisons. 1 additional lethal and non-lethal poison to your weapons. So that seems overpowered. So I want to play with that and see. If this doesn't seem to be as good as it seems, I can always swap over to King's Blade. So okay, for the rogue talents. So you have Shiv by default. sap, yes. Evasion, yes. Cheat death, yes. Clip shadows, yes. Increases the damage. Increases the non-damaging effects. Poisons by 20, yes. That'll work for slow and other things. Each strike has a 30% chance to poison the enemy, clouding their mind, slowing their attack speed. Okay, so let me see here. So I have instant poison and deadly poison for my lethal. Yeah, I don't think I need anything else because crippling poison will slow. Wound poison reduces healing, so yeah, I think I'm actually good there. Reduced 10%, yes. I don't need gore. Well, do I or don't I? Must be in front of the target. No. Enemies have 30% reduced damage and healing for 6 seconds after blind and saps. Okay. I don't need tricks and trade while stealth. While stealth or shadow dance is active, you move 20% faster. Yes. Subterfuge, yes. Shadow step, yes. Wound poison can now stack 2 shots, yes. Increase the damage of your, yes. Increase your, yes. Okay, so this was the side that was really useful for subtlety. So movement speed increase 50%, yes. Increases the healing you receive from Crimson Vial healing potions and health, yes. Reduces the cooldown for 66, yes. Prey on the weak. Enemies disabled by your cheap shot or kidney shot take 10% increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. Yes. Energy cost of healing is reduced by 10. Yes. The energy cost of kidney shot, cheap shots happened. So I use kidney shot. Cheap shot, sap. I don't use distract. Reduces the duration of movement, slowing effects by 30%. Yes. Teaching poison. Yes. And I could take Thistle Tea. Just want to make sure. Versatility, yes. Increases the range of your melee attacks by 3 yards. Yes. That would be fantastic. Slice and Dice heals you for 2 seconds. Yes, and now I'm out of combo points. Yeah. Yeah. And then I have 1 combo point for Assassination. Okay. Well. much damage does ambush do? About half of Groat. And more than Mutilate. So yeah, that might be worth taking. Play around with that and amplifying poison. Dragon tempered blades. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for you. And thank you for watching.